Hello. This Sunday marks the fifth and the final Sunday of Lent. Next Sunday will be Palm Sunday, and in 2 weeks we will celebrate the Feast of the Empty Tomb, which we call Easter. This Sunday's Gospel tells us the story of probably the greatest miracle that Jesus performed other than that of the resurrection itself. You will recall that Jesus had many friends, and today 3 of them appear: Mary, Martha, and their brother Lazarus. At the beginning of the Gospel, we find out that Martha and Mary and Lazarus live in Bethany. Bethany is about less than 2 miles from the great city of Jerusalem. And Jesus is about 2 days' journey south of Bethany today. And he and some of his apostles and disciples are on mission. They are spreading the good news. They are explaining the gospel story. They are healing. They are forgiving sins. And while they are on mission, they receive word about Lazarus. Lazarus has become very, very ill. And Jesus says, that is really unfortunate. We must pray for him. And when I am finished here, on my way back to Jerusalem, we will stop at Bethany and we will meet with him. In a couple days, Jesus finishes his mission and he returns to Bethany. And when he is just outside of the city, Martha meets him. And it's clear that there is something wrong. And Martha says to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you." And Jesus said to her, "Well, your brother will rise." And Martha said to him, "I know he will rise in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus told her, "I am the resurrection and the life. And whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die." "Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who is coming into the world." With that, Jesus says to Martha, "Go and get Mary, and let us together go to the burial place of Lazarus." And so that is indeed what they do, along with all the other people that have gathered around with and for Martha and Mary in their grieving. When they reach the burial site, they discover that it is actually a simple cave, and a stone has been rolled in front of it. And Jesus asks that the stone be moved away. And Martha says, "Oh Lord, maybe we shouldn't. You know, he's been there for 4 days and there will be a real stench." And Jesus says, "Don't worry about that, Martha." And again he says, "Please, roll the stone away." And they do so. And then Jesus offers a very brief prayer to his Father in heaven. And then in a loud voice, he says, "Lazarus, come out." And behold, Lazarus comes forth from the cave, even though he is still wrapped from head to toe in these cloths that were used for his burial. And Jesus says to those people present, unwrap him and let him go free. And all are amazed, for none have ever experienced this kind of a miracle, where a man, after 4 days in the tomb, has been raised. Jesus does amaze them all, and he amazes those of us who listen to the story as well. Because the simple and yet profound lesson of this experience is that just as Lazarus was raised from the dead, and just as Jesus himself will rise from the tomb, so too you and I will be raised to eternal life because of the love that Jesus has for each of us. And so we rejoice and we be glad as we listen to this good news, as we listen to the gospel of the Lord. Finally, I would ask that we just take a moment and think about perhaps a more contemporary consideration. How we might be experiencing this death and potential resurrection ourselves. Because just as the world has been plagued by this coronavirus, just as many have and will die from its effects, just as countless men and women have been and will be sickened by the disease, and just as even more have been sequestered in their homes in order to stop its spread, we believe that in time and with God's help, all will be well. All will be well if we but trust in our God and follow the directions of responsible authorities. We cannot yet rejoice. We cannot yet be glad. But in time we will. But meanwhile, the good news tells us to go and to serve the Lord as best you can by the life that you live. That, my friends, is the good news. That is the gospel of the Lord.